Tyson knocked out a string of 19 challengers in just 12 months. With a display of awesome punching power, he's become the sport's rising superstar. But in his last outing against James Quick Tillis, he went 10 tough rounds. Tonight, New York hosts Mike Tyson versus Mitch Green. There may be no title on the line, but this building is alive, as if tonight is a heavyweight championship fight. We're live from Madison Square Garden in New York City, where HBO Sports presents the main event, a 10-round heavyweight fight between Mike Tyson and Mitch Green. So a rising star has made his way to an arena steeped in boxing tradition. 3 heavyweight champions continue on in the Unification Series as Mike Tyson awaits his chance. Ironically, Michael Spinks, Tim Witherspoon, and Trevor Berbick have never even fought in this historic building. There was a time when Madison Square Garden was a showcase for names like Lewis, Marciano, Ali, and Frazier. And now, as we store those memorable nights away, a new force has emerged in the heavyweight division, reawakening a sleeping giant. Madison Square Garden is latched on to Mike Tyson as boxing returns to the main arena, a thread which ties boxing's glorious past to a promising future. Fight night in the Garden. They used to say it a lot in Madison Square Garden, but they haven't said it about heavyweights here in the big room since Ken Norton fought Jerry Cooney more than 5 years ago. Hello, everybody. I'm Barry Tompkins, along with Sugar Ray Leonard and Larry Merchant, and we've got what should be an interesting evening for you tonight. Ray, the legend of Mike Tyson, the man might have just become a little bit more mortal. He went 10 rounds with James Quick Tillis. What's the pressure like on him? You went through pretty much the same thing.
I tell you, Barry, I would prefer to fight an opponent than to deal with the pressure. It's really tough because, see, the fans' high expectations when they celebrate a fight like a Mike Tyson, it's every day because everyone critiques you in a different way. It happened to me when I first turned professional. Everyone expected me to be champion. I did become champion. For Mike Tyson, I'm impressed with the fact he's only 19 years old and very composed.
Well, Mike Tyson is only half the fight. Larry Merchant, Mitch Blood Green is the other half. What does he bring to the dance?
Well, if he doesn't pose a real threat to Tyson, he definitely poses a challenge. He's definitely the toughest character that Tyson has been put in with yet. And by that I mean just a tough guy off the street. How tough? Well, he asked to fight Mike Tyson. The last time we had that, Trevor Berbick asked to fight Pinklin Thomas. We thought he was crazy, and he went on to pull up a 7-1 upset. So who knows about Mitch Green? In fact, Mitch Green was the guy who fought Trevor Berbick just before he pulled off that upset and gave him a heck of a fight. So Mitch Green, a tough kid from the streets of the Bronx and Harlem. Tyson from the streets of Brooklyn. We're here in the Garden. The old days, that's how they used to settle these neighborhood wars.
Interborough battle is what we got here. And so the selling of the, quote, next heavyweight champion continues. If you talk to Mike Tyson, he'll have to say he's going to bite the promotional bullet. He asks about his feelings. And, of course, he says people consider him a commodity. Like many 19-year-olds, Mike Tyson is preparing for finals. But he is not your average student. He doesn't read his lessons, he watches them. He doesn't attend classes.
To pick the opponents for Mike Tyson. Nothing is more important than the opponents you pick for a fighter.
The strategy was to pick opponents he would not only beat, he would beat devastatingly.
When someone sees a Mike Tyson fight, We want them to leave the arena saying, when can we go see him again? And that's where Bill and I are scrupulously careful in determining who he fights and the style of the fighter.
But it would take more than pulverizing unknown opponents in obscure arenas to get the attention of the press and public.
After his fifth fight, we decided the time was at hand for the marketing of Mike with a technique that had never been used before, simply because video cassettes were never really available to a manager before. We prepared cassettes of all of Mike's fights and sent those cassettes with a covering letter to the top sports writers and top television personalities throughout the country.
Wallace Matthews of Newsday, with a circulation of over 500,000, was the recipient of a Mike Tyson marketing tape.
It really brought Tyson to the attention of a lot of people who hadn't seen him, myself included.
In addition to Caton and Jacobs, there was also a support group whose involvement increased the awareness and interest in this 19-year-old phenomenon. Boxing promoter Jeff Levine, whose company could provide national television exposure, was hired.
The fact that a good part of the country was seeing the knockouts and the explosive power, I think that was what created that mystique to begin with.
Other interest was generated by publicist Mike Cohen, whose television and newspaper contacts added more fuel to the fire.
And when we sat down in that meeting with Levine, Jacobs, and Caton, the 100% A1 strategy was to go after the non-sports fan, to capture the fringe sports fan, and certainly the fringe boxing fan.
According to Cohen, this was achieved by selling Mike to the so-called newspapers of influence, such as the New York Times, the LA Times, the Chicago Tribune, and the Wall Street Journal. It said the press can make you or break you, but if you're Mike Tyson, its value has been priceless. Michael Katz, one of boxing's most respected writers, can attest to the importance of the press.
Press plays a very big part in the sense that if a promoter or manager knows how to use the press, you get the amount of ink, the timing of the ink, in such a way that getting a title shot pays. Anybody can get a title shot if you want to pay for it. The idea is to get the title shot so it pays you.
Basic to the success of a fighter in terms of the money that fighter could make. The bigger the press, the more prominent the fighter becomes, the greater purses he commands, the more interest he generates.
14 months ago, Tyson was earning under $1,000 a fight. Today, separate deals with ABC and HBO have brought in over $2 million for 8 fights.
I don't believe there's ever been a fighter who has reached this prominence this quickly in the history of boxing.
It would therefore seem as if Mike would enjoy being in this position. Yet, like the pigeons he raises at his Catskills home, a feeling exists that sometimes it would be nice to just fly away.
But can I tell you something? People wouldn't want to be in my shoes. They really think so because they say, wow, I can make money, I can get rich. But if they had to go through some of the things I had to go through, I think they would cry. Sometimes it's so depressing you got to go through. They always want something. They want to find a way to get your money. It's always people just as hard as you work in a gym, there's people working that hard to separate you from your money.
Despite the pressure, press, and notoriety, Mike Tyson does not regret where he is. He's just a 19-year-old whose only desire is to become heavyweight champion.
Personally, I feel I'm doing my job 100%, and I expect them to do their job 100%. The result's a foregone conclusion. There's no way we could fail. We must succeed.
Thus far, the plan has succeeded, but what's yet to be proven is, will it stand or will it crumble? Well, it didn't crumble the last time, but it did wobble ever so slightly. Tonight, the Garden is the stage for the Mike Tyson story, Chapter 21. Now, with more on the marketing of the hottest ticket in the heavyweight division, here's Larry Merchant.
Mike Tyson is an awesome prospect. A prospect in the process of becoming a fighter, a challenger, a champion. All in the next week and a half when he's going to fight 10 times. Just kidding, folks. But it does seem that already, prematurely, he's being treated like some sort of human trash compactor. Expected to go out there and just grind everyone into powder. And if he does anything less, it's failure. So let's just remember that even the best prize fighters let some opponent standing and the critics clucking, and that he is just 19, and that he's been a professional only for 14 months. And he still has much to prove. That his punch will do as much damage to the better class of fighters as it did to the less better class of fighter. That he'll be able to take a punch, that he'll fight back when he's hurt, that he'll persist when he's frustrated, that he'll be able to go 10 hard rounds, and most importantly, that he'll be able to deal with stardom, not let it suffocate him, let it inspire him, so that he can shoulder the burden of other people's expectations. His expectation tonight is to beat Mitchell Green, but Mitchell Green, like him, is off the streets of New York, not Mr. Rogers' neighborhood.